And welcome everybody who's watching this session. It's really, really wonderful to be here. And on behalf of EMA, the Event and Entertainment Management Association, I am absolutely delighted that we have been able to partner with Event FAQS Media to put this together. Almost 100 speakers across the day talking about the power of political events, cultural events, religious events, and sports events, and all of this coming together at one place. I have two ambassadors of culture here with me. One who, of course, has been an ambassador to many places, but after that is the true ambassador of culture. Every time I have spoken to Sri Dinesh Patnaik, it has always been a pleasure because of his forward thinking, because of his ideas, and because he's also one person who tells it as straight as it is. If there was the need to have anybody who could, make sure that everybody stayed on the straight path, I have Sanjoy here with me as well, our ex-president, and it's wonderful that Abbas did a session before, and now you've got Sanjoy and me together. So we are all going to try and make sure that the EMA agenda gets spoken about a lot here. I'm going to start with you, Ambassador Patnaik. You've been the ambassador of India to many countries, worked in several more representing our country. Has the world woken up to the power of Indian art and culture?
A very good question, Roshan. But before I start, thank you. It's wonderful seeing both of you here. This is a conversation which is needed a lot. Waking up to Indian art and culture, it had woken up long back. It woke up in the 50s when actually ICCR started in the 50s. Then there were a whole lot of host of luminaries who took Indian art and culture to the west, to the east, to all over the world. Then our cultural centers which opened up, and also the power of Bollywood and the power of all of you event managers who took Indian culture all over the world. So in a sense, we have been doing it for the last 50 years. But what is important is it embedded within those societies. In some places it is embedded, in others it is event driven. And I for one would like to have a system which embeds Indian culture into the system, where there is a suo moto, something which happens within the system where you create your audience of the future, where people actually listen to, take interest in, and learn Indian art and culture in every form. So that is what ICCR, I want to reorient ICCR to that, rather than become a sporadic, event-oriented organization, which just takes events, makes people happy, and then comes out. I would rather that it is embedded within society, where society itself, because it's like in India or anywhere else in the world, unless you create your audience of the future, you are limited in your scope. So we have to create that. We have to create embedding into the system of countries that are there.
It's so well said, because I think two wonderful things you talked about. One is about embedding, our culture and building audiences of the future. With everything happening online, with the fact of there being so many portals from which we are consuming, whether it is Netflix or Amazon, etc., you have been extremely passionate about driving a virtual portal of culture. How is that idea going? Is there any progress on that?
There's a lot of progress. In fact, we just got caught in it. We did not know how to do it. Essentially, whether to use a running OTT platform, somebody else's platform, use it to do some of your activities, or to create your own platform. We realize that it's better to create your own platform, because it's something which you will have control over. And it can be today, because of the seamlessness of connectivity, your own platform, you can show it on other platforms also. And then it's just not OTT platform as in TV. It is also platform as in going into TV, household TVs, going into diaspora channels, going into all other things, not the internet, but every possible medium it can go into. So in a sense, we create a platform which can lead into other platforms. That is important. But what is important is to create that content. And what is the content? Because what is happening today, when we do events, I mean, Sanjoy does large number of events across the world. We do large number of events. There are a lot of countries which do large number of events. But there, the audience is limited to the size of the auditorium or the size of the place that we do it. So it is 300, 400, 500. And if you have a great show, it's about 1,000, 2,000 people. But online, you have an audience which is unlimited, which can become huge and which can see at leisure, at whenever they want to see. So what I see in the future is a hybrid model where we will want to do, because there are a lot of people, despite seeing Netflix, despite everything, you want to have the experience of seeing it in an auditorium, of seeing it in a crowd. That will come. But we can also have both simultaneously. So hybrid model, which every show is shown online as well as on site,
What
is
a
something
wonderful
which I
idea.
think is going to be the future.
What a wonderful, wonderful idea. But as you rightly said, we need the right content and we need people who can go and showcase that content in the most brilliant manner. Who better than Sanjoy to speak to about that? Sanjoy, people have been building IPs for a very long time. You started with the JLF as far back as 2008, if I'm not wrong. Did you see it coming this far? And it is now firmly planted in the world literary map. In fact, during the pandemic, I've seen you do editions from I don't know how many cities. So could you tell us, just briefly, what are those key elements that have made it establish and embed itself into the culture map of the world?
Thanks, Roshan. Roshan, no, we didn't know that it's going to become amongst the world's largest festivals. And unlike what Harvard Business School teaches, that we had a 5 and a 10 and a 15-year plan to take over the world, we didn't. Much of it has happened by accident. And as Ambassador Patnaik said, accidents happen also when you actually prepare for them to happen. So the 5 ingredients that we look at, I mean, anywhere in the world when we set up festivals, and remember, we came back to India with the festival. It's not that our festival experience started in India. It actually started at the Edinburgh Festival. And our learnings from Edinburgh or South Africa or America or Australia all sort of in many ways taught us how to manage something and make sure that it would be of a world-class standard. And also because we'd already got different offices and colleagues in different parts of the world, when we set up the festival in Jaipur, it was very easy for us to get the word out that this festival was on and we were inviting people. And our sort of, lack of a better word, followers or festival junkies immediately made that beeline. And one of the things that Ambassador Patnaik touched upon, and I want to elaborate, 50 years ago when ICCR or when India's culture started going out, and then, also with Pupul Jaikar and Rajiv Sethi, etc., perhaps at that point of time, India was still not the flavor of the season on the world stage in terms of its economic prowess. 10 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago, that came to pass. And people from across the world were very curious as to what is it about India and about doing business of India that they need to, in some way, get to know and understand more. What better way than to use culture to be able to explain the business philosophy that a country has. So when we look at art and culture, I keep saying there's no point segregating it as, this is a particular kind of thing. It's all very esoteric, etc. It's not. It's about realizing the philosophy of a place. And when you look at India, India has thousands of philosophies. Our syncretic traditions are second to none. So if you have a particular way of eating or working or speaking in the north, in Delhi, it's very different. If you go to Jammu, if you go to Andhra, if you go to Bengal. So a lot of people who come to India, they don't know how to start or where to start. I think culture sort of helps break some of those myths, understands the very resonance that we have as societies of multiple plural societies. And that's where really ICCR, for example, that's where its primary focus is try and give people a sense. So coming back to JLF very quickly, the fact that we were in Jaipur, finally it's location, location, location. You need infrastructure. There were hotels, there's cars, there's roads. You need history, incredible forts and palaces. I keep saying, to all our other festival colleagues at Hay Festival, etc. I said, you don't have a fort on site where you can throw this fantastic dinners or parties. So we have all of that advantage. And because of that advantage, brand JLF has been so successful.
No, it's brilliant. I think you've given everyone a lot of indications, but I think it's also the whole thing, as you said, that how does a particular nation's philosophy end up becoming something that resonates with the world at large? Because really, I mean, when I look at bigger shows, and I've now started seeing this happen in casting in television shows, that there will always be a person representing India, China, Russia, Africa, and then there will now be perhaps the token protagonist who would be, I mean, I'm talking more of American cinema and television, etc. But they've started doing this, and it's there is a soft power to culture which obviously everybody is exploiting. I have two questions. One is the fact, Sanjoy, to you and then to Ambassador Patnaik, saying most of us struggle not with the content but with the sponsorships. Most of us are constantly trying to make our bills work. You have somehow managed to even see that through. So I want your perspective on how do we make these IPs and these cultural festivals, etc., more attractive to sponsors. And then I want to ask Ambassador Patnaik the same, saying, what is his advice? How can the government or ICCR, etc., support such IPs?
So, Roshan, quite simple. One is when you set up any IP or a festival, or you set up something virtually, you know that you have to make an investment. It's not going to pay off instantly. So when we go into a country, we're very clear that it's going to take 3 to 5 years to be able to realize our investment. So that's one. If you're looking at it as a short term, we're doing an event, we're going to make so much of money like we normally do. It may happen, but by and large, it won't. The second is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. If you're looking at the way forward, whether you're collaborating with government organizations like the ICCR, MEA, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Trade, all of the ministries who work in a very focused way to ensure India's soft, or what I call smart power, being rolled out using business and economics. And then, of course, is working with collaborators in those countries. But Roshan, as you know, collaboration is not an easy thing. I mean, you have to have a sense of how you're going to work together. If both parties come to the table of, I'm going to rip you off, or I'm going to take more money than you are, etc., I'm not going to be transparent, or if you've arrived at the table with your vision not aligned, that collaboration's doomed to failure. And I've always said, or certainly we've always followed across the world, our instinct. If we feel that our collaboration or our partners are going to be great, we go ahead. And I'll give you an example. In South Africa, a former ambassador introduced us to a very well-known, a very large industry group in that country who was very keen to partner with us. And my instinct was, this is going to go nowhere, and their vision is not aligned with our vision. And I had to fight with my colleagues and the ambassador, and said, this is not going any place. And luckily I did that, because pretty soon after they got into huge trouble. So, find the right partner. And if you're looking to make as much money to buy a plane and a yacht, not possible. This is the world of the arts. There has to be an expectation management of what that means.
Right.
It's quite different from the world that we know that many of us inhabit.
No, but really, really, really important point. I must say, every time I receive those messages that you send to everybody talking about the sessions that are happening, there is a joy I see. I mean, I think you are far more richer than most of us in just the amount of things, the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of experience, and the wealth of culture that you end up with. I think one other point for everybody to take away is align your values before looking for commercial value. Let me go to Ambassador Patnaik and ask him, how should agencies approach working with organizations like ICCR, before getting to one or two of your initiatives, sir?
No, Roshan, I'll take over from what Sanjoy said. And you see, there is enough money out there. Money is not an issue. First is aligning yourselves with what you want to do and what people want from you. You see, sponsorships come from people who find value in what you are doing. But let's go one step back. What is it that we take abroad? And I'm taking abroad because it's the same thing for India. And
Absolutely.
I have this old theory that unless we create a fluorescence of culture and cultural activities within India, no matter how much we take abroad, it will never be enough, because it is within India that we have to create this ecosystem of having cultural activities, which is very important. And for that, organizations like you are important, because you have to explain to government that art and culture is not different from economy. It is so inextricably linked, because we always look at art and culture as something not economics or not business or not, that it doesn't contribute to GDP. If you just put art and culture together, it is a huge contribution to the GDP, to employment, to everything put together. In fact, as a single industry, I think it's one of the largest industries in the country, even bigger than steel, chemicals, fertilizer, everything else. So, that's a different part to go to. But when we go abroad, there are two ways. One is government agencies going abroad, and the one is agencies like JLF, like what Sanjoy does and other people do, which is private agencies taking people abroad, either through impresarios abroad who want Bollywood, culture, other things they want to do, or you create your own IP and take it abroad. So basically, when I see the world today, these are the two ways of taking it abroad. Now, when government takes it abroad, unfortunately, what Sanjay said is true. We all work separately. So if I'm doing a Venice Biennale, or I'm doing the London Tourism Mart, or I'm doing Dusseldorf Fair, I'm going only as Ministry of Commerce or Ministry of Industry or Ministry of Information Broadcasting or whatever. If we all go together, this can become huge events. You spend 100 rupees, but you just add 20 rupees from each of the others. You have literally a large event which you can create. It does more for you as a country than it does if you're individually going, because you're just using your money to do small events all over the place. In London Tourism Mart, you take some 10 booths and do a little dance drama, whereas you can actually be all over London Tourism Mart if you're all going together. So we have to somehow do that. Once you do that, all you event managers will have to manage all these massive programs. And this is what we need to do. So you need to get governments to start putting things together. I'm already started on the process. In fact, the notes I've been putting up is for this only, that we should all work together. The other is what you take, like GLF or other things. Now here, government is still very hesitant. We do not want to become part of anything which is supposed to be a private initiative, not understanding that 80 to 85% of what happens abroad in terms of art and culture is all private initiative. What government initiative does is that 10-15. Now, Sanjay said one more thing which I want to take up on. He said, when you first start, you're not going to make money out of it, because you have to create your IP, you're going to invest. Now, this is where our organizations come in to help you create that IP, fill in that little blank where I can help you out in the beginning till you become big enough to go on your own, where I don't need to help you. I'll keep on chipping in once in a while. So we both earn from this. I earn what I'm doing, because I'm not here to make money. I'm here to spread the word.
Absolutely.
But you are there to make money. So if we can both work together, then it works out fine. So this has to
be... Is there a way? I'm only coming in because, we have 5 minutes left and I want to bring in two quick questions to you. One is the fact, is there a way that the Event Management Association can interface with ICCR on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis?
We can. And that is actually the best way. It's not just ICCR. Why don't you do it with all the agencies which do cultural programs across, and we work it out together? So everybody who does it. So we work with Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Tourism, and we say, how can we work together? And so all the event management companies, you coordinate with us, like what we are doing, let's say for Expo, the Dubai Expo, or for any other organization. If you can work with, that's the reason, if you remember in the beginning, I asked you a question, is EMA registered? Because if you are registered, you become the face of doing all events abroad. We are not doing many events. I mean, frankly, it's Sanjoy and to some extent Witchcraft and one or two others who are doing these big events. But we need to do bigger, and we need government to be a part of it. We all have the same purpose. And at the end of the day, whether I give event managers here or I give it event managers abroad to do the function, I have to give money. You can raise money. There are a lot of businesses in each country. Every country in the world has Indian businesses doing that. They will see value in actually using this platform to publicize themselves in those countries. So we need to bring them all together. Now, how can we bring them together? When government does it, there is a natural tendency to hesitate. If EMA pushes it, brings both the industry and the government together, it would be a great initiative.
Wonderful thought, and I think we're going to definitely take you up on that. Sanjoy, I want to just quickly ask you, saying that going forward 2021, what are you seeing? What is your advice to all the agencies in terms of hybrid events, physical events? Because I keep hearing this constant battle between the virtual and the real, and people saying which will survive. One is not as good as the other. What are your comments?
So I just want to, before answering that, just wanted to comment on one thing that Ambassador Patnaik said. For example, when we did India at 70, I mean, we took the initiative. Ambassador Patnaik and his colleague, the High Commissioner in London, both got behind it. And collectively, we created the most phenomenal a program in the UK, including a reception at Buckingham Palace to kickstart it. And it ended at the Barbican with the London Symphony Orchestra performing a new piece that had been created by Dr. Subramaniam. Now, if either of us had tried to do it independently, it wouldn't have worked, both in terms of access, be in terms of money. But when we both came together using our strengths, our access to the best venues in the country, their access to resources, and I'm not talking about government resources here. I'm talking about resources in the private sector, which they can also access through phone calls, etc. That's when you come together, really come together with your strengths to be able to create something that's substantial and leaves a mark. And leaves a mark how? Because it raises the profile of your country's economics, policies, the way people look at it, etc. So, these are very rarely talked about, but very, very tangible issues. Going to the future, Roshan, COVID is here to stay. There's no magic bullet. We're seeing new strains, etc. And at least in September of 2021, we're not going to see any kind of return to normalcy. The prediction today is that more like 2022 summer. We are planning for physical events beyond September of 2021. I think the digital experience is absolutely here to stay, Roshan. I'll give you an example. In the Jaipur Literature Festival in Jaipur in January, our largest venue accommodates 10,333 or 13,300 people. Online, one session gets us 30,000 people. Our capacity at JLF London at the British Library, and per hour is 1,200 people. JLF London, the virtual edition, has already been seen by 450,000 people. So, you're talking about completely different numbers. The question, I think, the moot question here is, where is the money? Therein lies the problem, because where you got 100 rupees for a physical event, today you're getting 8 rupees for a digital event. So how do you reinvent the space? There are two ways. Technology will come to the rescue at some point of time, try and make the experience far more experiential. But also remember that that physical event isn't going anyplace. People still look at, need, and want that connection. Dinesh, Ambassador Patnaik, and I want to come together to have a conversation over a drink or a dinner. This Zoom doesn't quite work it. So both are here to stay. I think we need to find a happy mix. But if we continue to fantasize that, when the stars align, then COVID will disappear, or COVID asks for a night pass or agrees not to go out during curfew times or whatever, I mean, that's a load of bunkum. We all know that. And every vaccine developer has already said, if the vaccine is 50% efficient, they will think it's a success. 50%.
Wow. So, listen, I mean, truer words have not been said. This is what we talked about at our digital day property as well, when we were talking, and many people spoke of the fact of saying that hybrid is going to become 30% more of our business. Ambassador Patnaik, just last few words in terms of this session. I wanted to talk about the fact that, you all did something as a physical event, I think in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, to commemorate the anniversary for Pandit Ravi Shankar. And after that, you all have been doing a whole bunch of events. What has your experience been doing events, physical or hybrid, during the pandemic?
I mean, physical event in Spain was amazing. I mean, I just didn't believe that this number of people will turn up. They had an auditorium of 2,500 people, but we were allowed only up to 1,200, and it was packed, and all ticket-paying audience. So, it's not just that it was audience which had been invited by the embassy, but a ticket-paying audience. So what I'm saying is there is a large amount of people out there who are looking for good content, good music, good art, good culture. And this is what we need to reach out to them and put it. But it can only work if we all work together. Spain had a certain ecosystem where we work, where we have a public-private partnership which worked wonderfully, where the government's there, where agencies there, everybody worked with us. Why can't we do the same in India? I mean, like I told you, IMA and the government, if we can work together, because at the end of the day, you are the ones who are going to do the events,
Absolutely.
whether this way or the other. So why don't we work together to devise plan? Even today, apart from JLF, we don't have an international festival worth its name. I mean, JLF, it's an amazing brand, and there's no question about it. And I would like to be associated with it on a regular basis, because it is doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It does it in a much better fashion.
Oh, and so, as you rightly said, I mean, the fact is this, if frankly, every time I speak to you, Mr. Patnaik, I feel that, you reach out and you offer us a helping hand, where very often I see a closed door. And that, I think, is the attitude that needs to change. We will definitely do this as a physical conversation soon, not over Zoom, I promise, because that's happened for too long. Have a wonderful, wonderful time, sir. May the new year bring you a lot of, goodwill, good wishes, and for the entire culture sector. Sanjoy, to JLF and everything that you create, please continue to be an ambassador of IMA everywhere that you are. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me in this conversation. It's really been wonderful to close the year with such an enriching conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.